Right, call to order the committee of the whole meeting for May 20th, 2025. Have a roll call.
Simon,
Here.
Rhoda,
Here.
Wright,
Here.
Mead,
Here.
Babcock.
Here.
Item number one, approval of the minutes of the committee of the whole for May 6th, 2025. As discussed previously, we need a motion to lay this over until next committee of the whole.
So moved. Second.
Motion by trustee Simas, correct?
Yep.
Second by trustee Wright. Roll call.
Rhoda,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Mead,
Yes.
and Babcock.
Yes.
Next item, public comment. Is there anybody wishing to make public comment tonight? Say anything? Not, we will have public comment at the end of the meeting as well. If you think of something, have a chance to address the board then as well. All right, seeing no public comments, there's no old business. Next item is new business. Number two, the biennial nomination and selection of a chairperson for the committee of the whole. Got your ordinance in the packet here. When the committee hall was set up, we established where the trustees, every 2 years, trustees would choose amongst themselves a chair of the committee of the whole. We have been able to do that, I guess, choose the last couple sessions here for a while, but this is definitely something that we need to address. So I believe the procedure is for trustees to nominate amongst themselves or nominate one of themselves and select, put their name forward for committee chairman. And then just trying to go through here. And then I think if there was no agreement, I think we draw. But is there anybody who wishes to nominate themselves or nominate somebody as the chair of the committee of the whole?
Before we do the nomination, can we do a motion to, just to get an overview of what the responsibilities of the chairperson is?
So chairs, potentially what I've been doing for the last bunch of years or last year here.
But I mean,
previously.
not
So
in
the
depth.
chair, yeah, so the chair is essentially going to be the person who's going to run the meetings, make sure people, we go through the items. It's the person who trusts the board to calls on people who want to speak. And then really just going through running the meeting, right? Going through the agenda, calling on people, keeping track of what's going forward here. Urging everybody and board members to keep on, to talk, to address all the issues, and then to call for the votes with the village clerk.
Is there
So it's running
anything
that.
that Attorney Green?
No, I think that sums it up. I mean, they are
Chairperson.
a member of the committee of the
Correct.
whole, and they are appointed chairman of the committee of the whole, which means they serve the same purpose you serve in the for the corporate authorities in a regular board meeting. You manage the discussion, you recognize people who want to speak, you entertain the motion, entertain the second, discussion occurs, all for the vote.
I think as long as I've been coming to this case, it's always been the village administrator, but that's really not the ordinance says. It just happened to be that way.
Yes.
Because either nobody stepped up or there was no.
I think that's pretty much what's been.
Nobody volunteered.
Yeah.
So the chairperson works in conjunction with the village administrator.
No, he runs the meeting. I
Yeah,
mean,
the
as far
chairperson comes to
as-
me, yeah.
Is communication, because you were saying that trustees really don't do anything on their own outside of the board, unless they bring it back to the board.
or the committee, I mean, they
Or the
operate in
committee,
committee.
yeah. So I'm just saying, is there any structure as far as?
It's the same as we do now, really, for the board and the committee. I mean, agenda items go to the clerk, as is now, hasn't changed. I mean, staff doesn't do a lot of work with that, but we have a new clerk I know who's very, very willing and capable to fulfill that role of the agenda. So it's the same roles for the agenda items, village administrator, village president, or any village trustee, just notifies the clerk of an item to put on the agenda for discussion. That's pertains to or relevant to the business of the village. So that's the same as this now. Village trustees currently can put items on the committee agendas as well. So that would be the same as yours now.
Yeah, and I think what they wouldn't be responsible for, but would need to make sure happens is getting the agenda document
Yeah.
prepared, getting it properly noticed under the Open Meetings Act, but that would be in communication with.
With
Frank,
me and the
Joe,
clerk.
Clerk,
Correct.
and village administrator and clerk. You know, the meetings are set at a set time.
Yeah,
And here's the agenda, notice it out and publish it, prepare the packets. I don't think the committee of the whole chair has to prepare the packets, staff.
Does this person lose any,
any powers or rights or discussion, it's literally the chair of the meeting, no, you'd be the same role as trustees are now, right? The chair is the same position, same thing, it's just running. A little different than, I guess, a little different than the village president, right? Village president only votes for the most part if there's a tie,
Right.
in general, right? That's not, that wouldn't be for this, depending on, yeah, in general, it's every time.
Which is a deviation from Robert's rules, although we adopt Robert's rules, deviation from Robert's rules. They would vote like a normal trustee.
But that wouldn't be for the trustee. The trustee would just be a member of as a trustee, just happen to be chairing. So I guess I will say, is there any, if I make a motion to nominate a chairperson for the.
I would make a motion to nominate Mike Wright.
I'll second.
I have a motion by trustee Progress, second by trustee Mead. Any discussion? All right, roll call.
Babcock,
Yes.
me,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Rhoda,
Yes,
right.
Still for himself.
you can vote.
Yes.
You vote some.
Why wouldn't you vote for yourself?
Stay in conflict of interest. Thank you.
Do you want to take over the remainder of the chairing of the meeting, or me to finish chairing this one?
Feel free.
I just might run away. Next item is discussion recommendation of the bid specifications and the bid letting for the Class D patching program. Turn over to Brandon and Troy, and trying to discuss this.
So this is our annual Class D patching program. If you guys recall last year, same exact program, a different budget amount. Last year was $75,000. This year is $100,000. Last year we were not successful in obtaining any bids. So what we did as a staff is, so myself and Troy, we decided to change the way that we bid this project, in that we are identifying all of the patching locations prior to going out for bid. I know that seems like how things should be done and should have always been done, but historically it was not. Historically, what we did is we had different unit prices or categories based on the size and the depth of the patches. And then contractors would just submit a unit price per square yard, depending on the size of the patch. And then once we had those prices, we would then go out and identify the patching locations, submit them to the contractor, and then they had 10 calendar days to complete the work. After I had several discussions with contractors who had submitted bids previously, again, we didn't have any last year, but 2023 and before. And the contractor said it would be extremely beneficial to know all of the locations before. And then also change the way some of our sizing of our patches were laid out. Historically, we'd go down to, a couple feet by a couple feet if it was a, emergency pothole repair, all the way up to a full road width for, hundreds of feet. So what we did now is we work with contractors. We have some bigger patches set aside, and we have the locations identified. I believe that the location should be listed in the bid specifications document at the end. So this is Troy and I. Troy had sent out his team to drive, I believe, their snowplow routes and identify the areas that the public works staff thought needed to be looked at. And then Troy and myself visited all of those roadways and we identified the actual patching limits. So that is what you have before you.
Questions or discussions? Just gonna put up the pictures, but okay, so they're available in your packet. You also have them for the public too. They're available for those locations.
So the only thing I would add, You will see in these pictures, and if you drive the village's roads, obviously, there are many roads that could use a lot of TLC. These patching locations are by no means meant to, make these roads last for 10, 15 years. They should be seen as Band-Aids to prevent people from driving in potholes and really disruptive areas. When Troy and I go out, it's always a running joke with us is where do we stop the patching limits? Because if you look on 1 foot on each side of the edges, you would say, oh, that should be extended. Well, this type of work, small quantity, different locations is not really feasible for contractors, so the pricing is high. The feasible way of repairing our roads is actually going out for bid and fully replacing the pavement. So, but we do have locations that need to be prioritized that can't be programmed into a residential streets program. So that is what we have come up with.
Just so everybody knows this too, so I just got an example up here, based on up there. Can you explain to us the difference between what Class D patching is versus like we see here, like there's pothole repairs there?
Yep.
What's those two, what actually is Class D?
So the dark areas that you see, those are actual potholes. Those are centralized locations where the pavement and generally the base underneath the pavement has failed. What a Class D patch is per IDOT specifications is a full depth removal and replacement of the disrepair area. So we also look at, again, if we have significant potholing in areas, we do sometimes call out where we will dig down to the aggregate base beneath the pavement and fully replace if it's warranted. What we do with contractors in this is once they remove the pavement, we have them drive fully loaded trucks over these patching locations. And that will identify if the base underneath needs to be repaired. And then we repair that if it's warranted.
And how far does the patch go? I guess I think we're talking, right, essentially half the road across, right?
Oh, yes.
Or
So
all the way
talking
across.
with the contractors, again, we would go, a few feet wide by however long. In the past, the contractors had said it is more feasible for them to bring out pavers and larger equipment. So they recommend going to the center line of the road at a minimum. We do have some areas that are not that, but what a minimum paver width is generally 8 feet wide. So we try to at least do 8 feet wide. Most of our roadways within the village, the lanes themselves are 11 foot wide, so a 22 foot wide full road is generally the minimum. We do have some less than that. We have some more than that. But what we tried to do for this program was to go all the way to the center line, at least the full lane width.
So in this example here, what would be done?
So this, it's kind of hard to see the limits, but about where Joe's mouse.
I'm trying to get my marker back open here.
Yeah, it's hard to get representative pictures, but they will saw cut the pavement to the limits that we mark out ourselves. They will rip out the pavement. Again, they will do what we call a proof roll. They will drive a loaded truck over it to identify if there's any soft spots underneath the pavement itself. And then they will replace it with the same thickness of the existing roadway. Most of our roadways within the village, actually per the village ordinance, roads are supposed to have 3 inches of asphalt. I can tell you that a lot of our subdivisions, especially the older subdivisions where the village didn't truly have the staff to manage and have construction oversight, we don't have 3 inches of asphalt on the roadways. So when we replace these, generally it's about 2 to 2.5 inches of asphalt. So we will put generally 2 to 2.5 back. Again, it's meant to be a Band-Aid, and it's actually more costly to scrape out, an extra inch of gravel to get in that extra inch of pavement. Really, in terms of construction, all of your structural integrity comes actually from the base underneath the road, not the asphalt thickness itself.
Essentially, we're talking like this, right? It would be like a rectangle.
Correct.
Around this
Yep.
area.
Yep, that
So
is
you
correct.
wouldn't do all the other cracking there, just where the pothole.
Thus, the major potholes are starting where the pavement is actually starting to separate from itself. But yeah, you will see that's what we call alligator cracking. That is generally a sign of very severe pavement failure. As you guys know, we're working on a street study as of right now. That street study will identify an actual rating for a numeric rating for the roadway. A roadway like this is going to need full replacement, and the scores will reflect that. But obviously, there's budgetary restrictions. We can't replace all of the roadways with only, I think we spend roughly $480,000 to $500,000 on road projects every year. But that as you see in the bid specification that you just approved this year with an estimate of 630,000, that only gets, you know, handful of roadways completed. So unfortunately, yeah, we only have, as of right now, the funding for the residential streets program and MFT projects. We get an annual or quarterly allocation, I believe, for MFT funds. But those are limited and also dwindling, is what we've heard, is that the state revenue or the state allocations for MFT are not going to go up. So all the more reason that we need to go after grants for certain roadways. I will tell you that residential streets typically don't apply for grants and things like that. So trying to come up with additional funding sources or allocating the existing sources to prioritize infrastructure is extremely important.
Any questions for Brandon or for Troy?
So like there's 25 pictures here, is that about how many there's that are
So the actual let's see what this is. So it's actually only nine different locations. That's about 1,100 square yards. And we are estimating that 1,100 square yards is going to be about $110,000. So we're talking about roughly $10,000 per location. Some are less, some are more. But yeah, it does not get very far.
Roads are not cheap, yeah.
No, they're
And
not.
these are locations that we won't, like, we don't have any chance of repaving that whole road for quite some time.
Correct. So what Troy and I did, unless it's a very severe area that could potentially, you know, damage residents' vehicles, or it's a safety hazard for biking and things like that. We looked at our 5-year streets recommendation that we proposed during the budget time. And we generally tried to stay away from the roads that are going to be resurfaced within the next, you know, handful of years. But that's more of a judgment call. There's no real best way to do it.
But if an emergency happens, we have to patch that.
Exactly.
Brandon, this is a side, but talk about this a number of times, but is there any way that we can get that railroad crossing fixed?
So that's not a roadway.
Discussed.
Yeah, I mean, I know one of the county representatives has come to the meetings and said that he was going to reach out to the Winnebago County Highway Department, County Engineer Carlos. I have not heard an update, so I will try to send I will follow up.
Following up with that, because,
Yep.
I mean, it's.
Yeah, unfortunately, the railroads, they're the federal, you know, they're a federal organization. It's very hard to get them to repair things like that, but consistency is key. So we will, since it's the county roadway, we'll reach out to the county and hopefully have them reach out and see what can be done.
Thank you.
The last I heard was 2027 for that railroad.
Well, the trestle over Policeman Road dates back to 1910. They're just repairing it now.
Could get those, but you.
Right, so we have a motion, second, do we have a motion on this one? Motion to approve the residential road program?
So moved.
I'm saying, I open this up to you, okay, so motion by trustee Broder, second by trustee Sima, and we'll roll call please.
Sorry, you said Rhoda?
Broder and Sima, yep.
Right?
Yes.
Rhoda,
Yes.
Simon,
yes.
me,
Yes.
Becca.
Yes.
Thank you. That will be on the board for like next board meeting. Now, item number 4 is discussion recommendation of a text amendment revising the Village of Roscoe zoning ordinance relating to planned unit developments. I will have Evan Hoyer from Vanderwall Associates introduce himself. Some of you know him from ZBA meetings. He's here tonight to introduce himself, and then he'll just address us briefly about what this is and why we need it and where it came from.
So as Joe said, I'm Evan Hoyer with Vanderwall Associates. We're the zoning consultant, planning consultant for the village, day to day, so permitting, ZBA projects, things that come from here, ordinance amendments, things like that. Planned unit developments, for those who aren't as familiar, are really a negotiated process that the village can use to have either developments or existing properties that they don't fit squarely in the zoning standards or zoning regulations that the property fits into, to be able to offer some sort of flexibility or leniency with some of the standards and code. Land unit developments are usually for projects and sites that usually need a little bit of flexibility to get over the hurdle or started and have some sort of either some public benefit or maybe the standards. This is an existing site that's non-conforming and maybe needs a little bit of flexibility to do something that a regular site that maybe is newer and has already fit the district can already do as well. So the amendment before you tonight really sprouted from some comments we had heard from developers and other clients that we have at Vanderwall that they have a different process prior to the village's 2021 zoning rewrite. Planned unit developments, PUDs were handled in a two-step process at the ZBA level. And at the village board level, there was a general development plan, which was kind of set the layout, site plan, zoning for the site. Kind of made sure, gave the developer a little bit of assurance that the village was supportive of the general concept of what they wanted to do. And then the second step was more detailed, what's called a precise implementation plan. And that handles things like your parking, engineering, utilities, landscaping, things of that nature. So this amendment would be going from the one-step process that we have now in the village that requires developers to have all of that site plan layout and the more expensive utilities, engineering, construction drawings and things done beforehand, and then into that two-step process where we have kind of a general concept. Hey, does the village like this? Is this supportive? That get that kind of nailed down before they have to go out and spend for the more expensive or more detailed drawings as well. So kind of saving the developers, builders, property owners a little bit of time and money and effort. And it would probably help staff out to ensure that we have things that we actually are supportive of from the board and from the ZBA, that we aren't sinking too much time and energy into if there is no support. So that's the general gist of the text amendment for you guys. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
I attended the CBA and it passed 5-0, and it seems like this does make it easier for the applicants and people that work.
It makes sense to get the process started before they lay out a bunch of cash to
Right.
go further.
Essentially, this brings to concept phase and then come in for the very detailed
It might-
engineering.
It might drag the process a little bit long, but
And I guess I'm willing too. I mean, they always can do it all at once too.
Yeah, if they're smaller projects,
Yep.
especially in other communities, we see sometimes
Yep.
they just combine them right away,
Yep.
especially if it's like a non-conforming site or something that's just looking for
Yeah.
flexibility.
We have a few here that would probably still do that the same way, but we've also had a bunch, a lot actually for the last year here where it absolutely would have been a better way to do it would be with this two-step process where the developers come in and they don't want to put out all the money on it without knowing that it's going to have some board support and some trustee support, yeah.
It's just
And
some,
I guess you, or trustee, mean you've seen it at CDA, right? You've seen those same questions, sorry, I apologize.
No. is this something that if passed at a later meetings, we can institute into our current RFP situation?
I mean, RFP, it really is already this, I guess. That it's actually, the RFP is much less than this already, but yeah, we can. And we can do it on any Main Street programs, but the RFP we have out right now is probably less detailed than this. It's much less detailed. This probably is essentially the first half of this, part of it. So what the RFP asks for are those things in the first general development plan. And wouldn't actually require that specific stuff, yeah. It's sort of the second, or sort of the first part of that, so. If you have any questions, we can have those questions, otherwise, we can have a motion to recommend approval of this to the village board.
So moved.
Second,
Motion by, second by Wright, roll call please.
Babcock,
yes.
me,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
Yes.
Next item is number 5 is discussion of current hours of operation for village parks. Established by section 5.1 on the village code of ordinances. So this came up a couple weeks ago, question was just discussing what park hours we have, any sort of issues those might arise. Currently, all of our village parks are open between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10:30 p.m. Every day. So I think the discussion was maybe either on all parks, or at least I think the discussion was really about Riverside Park, not Riverside Park, sorry, Chicory Park, Chicory Ridge Park. Maybe adjusting the hours, making some changes out there. So I will open this up to the board for discussion.
I had a discussion with about 4 folks out at Chicory Ridge, and this came up when I went out to look at the lighting request. Their feeling was to, instead of spending money on lights, they're more in favor of a parking lot. But in their discussion, they had mentioned and asked, why was that park closed at 10:30 p.m.? They figured and they thought that a lot of the problems that they're having out there might subside if we close that at dusk. They kind of wanted to see why we don't follow the county in the same situation. Are only 2 parts gated that you guys please close is Riverside and Chicory are the only ones with gates, correct? That's why they had asked that they would feel better if those gates were closed at dusk, and they understand that it could be 8:15, it could be 8:40, they don't care. They're just, they know after dusk that there shouldn't be anybody back there doing whatever they're doing. That was a request. They wanted to see Riverside Park, and discussion with Sam. That might be a little bit different. I know there's people that probably fish out there all night sometimes, or late at night.
Football, yeah. Park, yeah.
We can close the kids in there. and, you
That's
know,
probably why those hours were set later initially anyway.
Yeah, when they play till the night games. But if it's just a motion to do the one park, I think that might help the situation.
Will that cause any added stress on the police department having to go out?
To that,
Yeah, I think we limit the scope to Chicory Ridge because that's a neighborhood park and that's where the complaints are coming from the neighbors.
Of course, the gate doesn't stop people from walking around to go back there anyway.
correct, but it stops, what they had said was. It stops vehicles from going back there. And then they know if someone's gonna park in the homes, I talked to the homeowners right by the gate. And if someone's gonna park in their front yard, they're gonna know that that car, and then I think the next phone call is.
Well, even just having a sign out there, it says it's, it's closing at dusk.
Yes.
We've had people know what the rules are, what.
There's no shelter or any reason for somebody to be back there, like
There's
if
a
they
small
were.
shelter back, rather
So
nice.
somebody might be using this shelter and what if after dark or not?
There's
I guess that's the question, probably not as much, right? I mean, we figure 5:30 is, what, 5:30 is probably sunset in the winter, and 8:30 or 9 in the summer, right? So do we adjust it? I mean, I guess what do you want to close it to? Is it dusk, or is it maybe moving to 9, or is it moving I guess. I don't know, what would work better, Sam or Troy, do you guys have any thoughts about, I guess what we're trying to, does changing the hours, I guess, does it solve the problem of people being back there, or is there something else we could do or should do? Or maybe just not, or maybe we try this, or is it maybe locking the gates earlier? I mean, we don't have to keep the roads open either. That's an option too. Do you lock it, maybe you lock the gates at, I don't know, sunset or later, but the park officially stays open at 10:30. Or change it to dusk, I guess.
I mean, I
Just
did,
trying to think of like
every park,
mixed, right?
it'd be nice to have one set, one,
Sign?
yeah. But Riverside's different down there because of football. Boat traffic or something.
And I mean, in Porter Park, there's definitely live night activity in Porter Park, if not our.
Leland's got the baseball game.
Absolutely, we'll stay, the lights to
Okay. What time are those, 10?
10's the latest I think go through lights.
That's what we have 10 o'clock lights go off and we let them that extra half hour to get out.
In Chicory going in park, I mean, after we lock the gate, talk about large area that's very dark. But, I mean, you know, also open the gate at 1 o'clock and, you know,
Go through.
drive in and through there, it's fine or anything, and it's like 2 o'clock. But that's based upon complaints or something. I don't know.
Can't you run an experiment, just close it at 9 and see what happens?
Do we get, I guess, what, do we have a lot?
Signage and everything else that they have to post.
Well, we were gonna say make it like legal, right? I guess you could experiment, you could go do it at 9 and just say it's closed at 9, or the gate's closed at 9, right? Because we could close the gates at 9, the park could still be officially open until 10:30, I guess, right? Just sort of see if that helps. Is there vandalism? Is
The
it
hour and
people
a half,
parking?
the hour and a half is irrelevant. That's,
Yeah.
the point is it's dark, like you just said, it's
Yeah.
dark at 5:30.
Yeah, in the winter.
Yeah,
It's dusk, it's dusk, it's dusk, and after dusk, it's
And
done.
it seems like it's the only park that doesn't have a nighttime activity really
Yeah.
going on.
Right.
So making that one the
that's one.
dawn till dusk only would make sense. I'd say let's make a motion to just change the rules for that one park. Sunrise to sunset is the hours of
For
operation
Chicory.
for Chicory Park.
I'd second that.
All right, yes, yeah. So we'll. There it is. So motion second, the motion is.
So at 9,
What?
at 9,
I know it does, so it'll be sunrise to sun, or to sunrise,
Sunrise to
sunset, I'll word that, yeah. So motion to set the hours just for Chicory Ridge Park for sunrise, sunset. Motion by trustee Broda, second by trustee Wright. Can I have a roll call?
Simon,
Yes.
me,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Becca,
Yes.
Broda,
Yes.
we will get that, done for the next meeting, we'll get that. Notice and publish and so. Next item number 6, discussion of the village economic development consulting services, for the village of Roscoe, and existing professional services agreement with Place Project LLC for on-call economic development consulting services for the village. So, really, David presented his, his report tonight. This is really discussion about what you want to see for economic development consulting, is there any changes in scope or any questions about the scope? So we get that put together to bring in the committee. I think, just Simon mentioned, maybe some more reports or more regular reports from David or Place Foundry or whoever. I guess that's discussion, opening up for discussion, what you want to see for our economic development.
What are the priorities?
The 3
Yeah.
priorities.
Yeah.
That's what I've got to come up with 3 priorities.
And do we anticipate, thank you for staying, by the way, I appreciate it, because it's important we sort of have you to answer these questions, so do we anticipate it shifting more towards 90? Rockton Road
Yeah,
this year? Is there things that on Main Street that could be finished up, or maybe we don't need this extensive? I think like the zoning is gonna be a big thing, right, moving forward. So I guess I'm looking at like, what's the handoff there? Where, we're at, what phase are we in on Main Street, where we actually are handing it off and doing more of these things internally as a village, and it may be focusing more so on the Rockton project.
and like just I-90 and sort of checking what we're at on that, and I mean, I guess what you're,
I guess my question was like, where do you
Yeah.
think, like if you were looking at the
Yeah.
scope, like where do you think we're at on Main Street? I mean, at the end of 2026 or at this year, are we pretty much done with Place Foundry on Main Street, or is it moving over somewhere else, or is it longer than that? I guess that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, so I would say for Main Street right now, getting the Business District Alliance off and running and that being successful with a solid core of business leaders, committee members, leadership from the village. I really believe that the next 12 to 18 months, and it wouldn't be right to say that the village is going to have to provide leadership to get it growing and going and organized until we've got a good solid board of directors in place and establish initiatives. So we're going to be right alongside with you and right alongside staff to make sure that that is successful. Wrapping up any details related to the tactical projects, making sure that that is done. And then I would say, especially I would say for like Labrie property, right? We issued an RFP, not successful. We could quickly calibrate that to an RFQ, shorten the time frame with the zoning text amendment, right? All those things in place, get that back out on the street so that way that can be responded to and procure someone. And any other village-owned property on this corridor where you feel like would be a priority to see development, right? So that would, to me, be the last part of the implementation. There's a lot in our plan that we recommend for implementation over the next 10 years. Design guidelines, there's a lot in there. So really that's gonna be, I would say, up to the board in terms of what you feel like would be the priorities going through the end of 2026 beyond for Main Street. For Rockton Road and I-90, I would say for us to really be able to dedicate a lot of time to that corridor and really starting to get not only discussions going with property owners, but really figuring out how do we actually start the recruitment of new businesses, retailers, if there's land that is, I mean, the reality is the property owner can decide, right, what they want to do and when, but what are those incentives that we can be putting in place and again, discussing and negotiating to move development forward in that corridor. We've, through our property inventory and recognizing like, what are the sites that are most ready for development versus the sites that it's far off, it doesn't really require any of our attention. So that would be a big majority. And then the third bucket that I would write in the proposal to you is more village-wide economic development. So those are when there's projects that are emerging throughout the year where you can call on us. It's like we, for example, we need a market analysis study for this particular commercial corridor intersection, right? You can do that. We can do that as a part of our work. We don't have to enter into a separate contract agreement because we're providing you that level of service.
But what about, can you proactively approach or work with local businesses that have shown interest? Like we've had several pillars of the community, folks that have been around for a while that have shown interest in working on these things, except, they don't know, they need guidance, right? They need to know, I'm willing to develop something on this property. I don't know what it is, but I'm willing to invest. I'm willing to do that. I think there's a disconnect. We need to have that connection where we're not just sitting back waiting for things to come to us. We have interest in it, and there's only X amount of folks that are local in Roscoe that are already established here that are willing to invest. And we do have our sort of whales, if you want to call them, which we don't want to lose, right? We're only going to, other municipalities. So is there any way, because I've proposed to you guys economic development, is there any way you guys can work proactively with some of these folks as far as helping them come up with ideas, design things, make it easier for them, having discussions? We don't want to lose them. And I think that's my biggest request.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we do that for other clients. We have in this transition period from the planning work, we've had some requests. Okay, like you said, the interest for this area. Well, now, what do we do? What is the process? How can we get them connected? And if it's a PUD, getting them ready. It isn't that we're doing the work necessarily like site design, but to your point, yes, we can be very proactive.
I mean, going out and having a discussion in their office, I mean, going to visit somebody that is here that's willing to that has interest, to really spur them, excite them, ignite to the point where it's not like, hey, I'm coming in here and I don't have an idea or I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, and it's too complicated, it's too much work. I mean, alleviating those barriers, so we don't lose them.
Yeah, that's my preferred approach, not the wait. So yes, be able to. Yep. That's where I talk about in terms of momentum. We've got the momentum, and I don't want to lose that.
If we do, you suggest sticking to 3 items. Does that require a 1-year deal again, or can we à la carte those when we? Because we determine we wanna go after those, or? How would that structurally work if we come up with 3 items?
Yeah, I went with the 12-month, that's what we did before. Yeah, we can structure it where if these are the 3, I would say Main Street, Rockton Road, village wide. What's the scope? What's the deliverables, timelines for those, and then you tell us when you want to execute on those. Yeah, we can structure it that way.
David, back on page 11 here, where you talk about the business district alliance. Associated with that is something else we'll talk about, and it's also on page 11, the website and marketing, because one of the things we decided way back when was branding has to be available before you can start going out and get people excited. You need to have the marketing material. Some of the stuff you've done, but to the point where how close are you, or is that something that's developing the brand?
Yeah, so for Main Street, we do, and as I mentioned, we're finalizing that website for the Main Street district to make it easier for people to understand the plan. And to your point, how they can start to see opportunities in the corridor. We can do that, and we will, that would be a part of the proposal, do the same for I-90 as a part of marketing. And what is that, we call it, internally, we've been saying it's the gateway district, right, to your community. Well, what does that look like, and what are some options we can start throwing out to you as a place to brand? So if you want to look at some of our other client work, you can look at in this market, you can look at Cherry Valley Crossing. So we're doing the planning work in and around the mall. They're using that actively as a part of tenant recruitment. The mall is using that plan, and we built the website to be the marketing arm of the village there. Similar for Lust Park. So I can provide those examples to you so you can see the branding marketing package. We actually contact the retailers as well. So
so you're doing the whole marketing package, all the letterhead, the logo, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think, before you can get somebody excited, you need to have something you can go show them, because that's people want to see, not just the talk, but they want to be able to visualize what's happening.
Yeah, we're finding more and more, the more that the community is ready for those direct discussions it's real time decision between 2 communities, and it could even be 2 communities, one community here and one in another part of the state or a different state, and they're choosing between the location. Having that ready to go is critical to those discussions, to choosing you. So.
Is that something you have completed, or is that something that would be in this next round?
So that would be in the next round for Main Street. We didn't, when I presented it to you a year ago, I gave you that option. It was like 3 options, and we chose not to do that last part. So we would do that as a part of the work going forward. That was the idea of combining Main Street, Rockton Road, and then village wide. So we could start to do that part that wasn't selected to advance the work here, and then also apply that out to the tollway.
One last thing was the communication with the trustees, like, so for instance, I know that I used the RFP as an example, maybe redoing that, looking at that, maybe addressing those types of things sooner. Also, for example, like the pop-ups, like, where are we? Are we realistically going to think this is going to happen by fall? What's the process for getting folks in those events when they're up and going? Like, those are the things that I wonder as a trustee as to like where we're at, what it's going to look like. Probably some more communication as to how they work. I don't know, I talked Attorney Green as far as how that could happen in an Open Meetings Act. That's something that would be sent to Joe, but I think that just updates as to where we're at in regards to timelines as to are we behind, are we ahead of schedule? Is it things that we can think what's going up there? I don't even know when the sign is going to go up there. I'd like to know that too. But wait for that. So those types of things I think are helpful.
So what I would like to recommend, we started doing this year with a weekly update to Joe and Carol, just to say, you know, here's progress, here's kind of what's ahead, here's some decisions. But we haven't applied that across all of the work, including the tactical projects. What I would recommend is we could have the weekly, like we're doing, status update to staff, but then also provide a monthly reporting to you, whether that's in person or if it's just a part of a, you know, information packet.
Yeah.
Just so you get that regular cadence of.
Remind the regular updates too. I mean, we got regular updates.
And we don't get them as.
We don't, I mean, we get, I think we get the billing updates, but I don't think we get necessarily all those, but yeah, I think absolutely. If we get something we can just send out to the trustees, that'd be excellent.
Just like where we're at a you know,
I
you
think-
can just.
think that'd be a good idea.
Where we're at with projects, what needs to be done next. Any issues that you perceive that are coming up, I mean, like the ordinance thing, or with the, I'm sorry, the RFP thing for delivery property. You know, we were asking for something and what we got is not what we thought we were asking for. We probably should have done an RFQ, right? Or we should have probably done something at least more simpler for folks to get information, right, rather than that. So that sort of things where we can do check-ins and say, okay, this really sort of missed the mark, we should reconsider.
I just got a question on I-90 and Rockton Road, where you got the anchor development strategy and the site-specific recruitment. Now, how extensive is that recruitment as far as, you know, identifying anchors for property?
Yes, so the anchor development, so what we do is we work with, we like to have this establish a property stakeholders group out in that area, right? So, and that way everyone is aligned around the vision. We're working with property owners, site specific improvement is that's the proactive work with the property owner if they asked us. On behalf of the village, if there's, you know, we were wanting to pursue entity based on this plan. That's the site specific.
Can you identify, if you identify an anchor in a property, can you go to the property owner to make them aware?
Yes, yeah.
I want to talk about what you're doing right now with the inventory.
Yeah, so what we've done is we've mapped, the geography is pretty wide around the interchange, but really trying to get a sense of what is kind of a benchmark for all of you to see site readiness, right? What if someone right now came and said, we're looking for 15 acres, 20 acres, right? Where, and then they're saying, we want to put up this data center, we want to put up this commercial retail development, right? What sites would actually fit? And so we're doing that right now, as well as what's the infrastructure status for the site, the zoning, who owns it, and then connecting with the owner. So as property, especially when it changes hands, that communication, you know, so if it's from a local person to not. So that's the next step that we're doing right now with Rockton Road, is getting in touch with the larger property owner of the northwest corner to understand what is their goals for development. And then really, we're working on behalf of the village to say the village wants to see this develop in this direction. And really try to come to an alignment, or at least say it's the village is proactively trying to recruit. Can you have the site ready? Will you go through the steps of zoning entitlements or?
Costume, you need us to send R3.
I think right now, I don't need anything. I think what we need to do is have. Maybe put together a proposal. Do you have what you need to generally put together a proposal for this?
Yep.
And then we'll put that, maybe the whole next board meeting. Have you got ideas or things you want to send to him? You can send to me or send to David directly, it's fine. But I think it's putting together a proposal of what the scope's gonna be. Then you guys, you know, talking about it at the committee meeting. Thinking me, are you? Have any questions for the board, I guess, how that they were looking for? Or?
No, I mean, I think I have what I need to for the proposal, and I think what I'll do is I'll outline what the communication and reporting can look like, so that we're all on the same page with that.
No, I don't think I have a schedule our next quarterly trustee workshop.
We don't have anything on the.
Yeah, we may have calendar yet for it, so that should be coming up, I think, pretty soon, right? That we had one already, and that's the next one, so. Okay. That's all I need on that one. Thank you very much. I need public comments. We have a sure out of order here, I guess, but any public comment? Sure, go ahead, say your name, just like you, try and tell your name and.
Carla Jorgensen,
Yeah.
I live 949 Full Drive, the Point subdivision. I just want to bring this to the board's. I don't know if this is the proper time or if this goes for the trustees or what board. But the White Oaks LLC, Josh Petrie, he's building, 7 buildings out there off that subdivision. 3 of those buildings, he renewed the building permit. The other 4, he has not renewed the building permits. And I always thought, okay, if you don't renew them, you don't start to build, you don't do anything. If he's continuing to build on them. So I just want everyone to know what's going on out there, because I do walk back there a lot. And I notice things like that. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I don't know if this is something that needs to go towards building or.
Yes, we've addressed it a little bit too, and I'll have Brandon update too, but yeah, we've looked into this since we got that initial discussion. I think, did you cut to trust, or did
Yes.
President got to say?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll have Brandon,
So.
find some information for you.
So we, so us as the village, we do not monitor building permits themselves. Those go through Winnebago County Highway or Building Department. So our permit, I don't know what Janelle's official title is,
Clerk, yeah.
permitting clerk. She is actively reaching out to Winnebago County to let them know what's going on and verify if they have their updated permits.
Does it get posted? Yeah, I think we found too, though, is that I think there's maybe 3 or 4 of them where the I think it's the permit, our inspections were completed. And they're just waiting at this point, I think, for a final certificate of occupancy. So that may be the ones that you're seeing, but we'll confirm that. And you can always reach out to President Governor myself or to Janelle probably really. Next couple of days here, or we've got your information, we can get a hold of you. But it seems that they renewed a bunch of them, but there's a few that they're just waiting for the final inspection and certificates to be released. I think all the inspections were done on those. We got that today on that, so. But yes, we have pointed it out to the county, and we're working with them actively currently.
I just wanted to thank you for bringing it to our attention and the way the process worked. We talked about it this morning, and those individuals on staff who said, hey, I'll do this research, did. And so it's in the works.
That's great.
We had fast. So we're waiting for you.
Yeah, it's just.
So thank you.
yeah.
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 Thank you.
Any other public comments? Next item sort of just as this too, we'll go over briefly over this, it's already 8:30, but just a couple issues on the code enforcement process, so the new board sort of knows how that works. So we have our part-time code enforcement officer, who's here, Village Trust, we act on pretty much complaints. He'll be out there a little bit looking for, and especially in the summer, he'll drive around and look for violations. But a lot of it comes through the village website. We get a lot of those, or we get phone calls, we'll call in, with, voicemails, or get a hold of us directly and what is that system. We do have a software system. So as soon as we get a complaint, it goes in that software system. And that gets addressed and so the process starts. So a complaint comes in, Jeff will go out, he'll look at the violation, determine is there even a violation. Sometimes we get complaints that aren't actually violations, but he'll check out all of those. He's on the phone with residents all day when he's here, returning phone calls and taking calls. He'll go check those out. If he sees there's a violation that's out there, if it's not something that's immediate, life safety issue, he will send out an initial sort of a first notice we have, which is just sort of a, hey, just so you know, your property, we found this, there might be an issue with it, here's what the code says, check on it, let us know, give us a call, and we'll walk you through it. And so the majority of the citations that go out, or the letters that go out, are that first letter. And I think probably most of them probably get corrected after that first letter. If there's no response to it, we don't hear back from them, that's a few people. I think the vast majority of residents either will call right away, oh, I was there out of town, sorry, I got it, I know that's what I need to do, yep, I'm on it. A few of them don't respond at all. Those get the second notice, which is hey, this is going to the code enforcement process now. It's a little more stern of a letter. It says you need to get your property cleaned up, maintained. Here's what the issue is. Gives them a timeline. Usually, we say a reasonable timeline. So if it's something smaller, a couple of days. Usually, they'll 2 weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks. Clean it up. Nothing happens there. Still an issue. It goes to administrative hearings, which is our in-house hearing process. That Doug Henry from Train Green's firm prosecutes those cases here. We've got Greg Cox. Attorney Cox is our administrative hearing officer, so he acts as the judge or an impartial judge. Barrett Schweitzer acts as our prosecutor, and they present that. A lot of times that works out in agreement. It's okay. All right, there's gonna be a big fine here, but if you remediate it within X number of days, 30 days, usually 60 days, that's usually for the larger ones, then we'll get rid of it, we'll vacate that fine. So yeah, we do usually issue a pretty high fine, or high-ish, right? $5,000, I think is usually we aim for on those, if they have to come to admin hearings. Very rarely do we have ones actually come to administrative hearing. But usually that fine or that threat of a fine is enough to get people in compliance. Even people who we've had, difficulties with, usually, okay, understand they need to do that. If that were not to be successful, we can do a couple of things. We can either collect on that fine, we can file a lien on the property, foreclose on it, which we have not had to do, or bring it to circuit court and sort of enforce it through the court system. For the most part, Roscoe does not have really problems. Almost everybody, even ones where there's something more complicated or more of a bigger issue, most of those property owners we have been willing to work with us, and we work with them. So, maybe it gets continued on for a few months as we work with them, but usually as long as we're making progress on it, whether it's hiring a contractor, whether it's paving, whether it's roofs or housing, or a lot of times it's with driveways not being in the code. Usually they do come into compliance pretty well. We have a few that we might present. We're working sort of on the final part of them where we might have to present to the board and ask you to allow us to bring those to court. There's a couple more serious violations, but for the most part, we have a pretty good response with people. So that's sort of the general overview, but I guess my big point would be is if you hear complaints, and I know I've got some from Mike who filed that way.
Within 24 hours.
Yeah, email them to us. Email it to us. You can call, leave a voicemail on Jeff's phone, hit code enforcement. There's a button on the phone for that. You can online's probably the easiest way. There's on our website, there's a report complaint button. Report it there. It goes straight to his email. It goes to my email and Janelle's email. We all sort of, I think maybe Brendan too, we all sort of keep an eye on it. Jeff sort of institutes that process, initiates the process. And generally it's either a phone call most of the time, it works really well for those, or that initial letter gets them cleaned up. But yeah, that's if you have people complaining or you hear your residents, let you know, you can, as trustees, file it online, email me, I'll forward you, Jeff, send it to code enforcement at roscoeisle.gov. Any of those ways, it all goes to the same spot, gets into the system, and we try to get it cleaned up pretty well. One more thing we'll say about that though is the grass ordinance. So our grass ordinance is 12 inches. For that spring, we're getting a lot of those right now. We always do. 12 inches is high. That's a lot for grass. So you'll definitely see, we get complaints when people calling in a lot that, it's, 6 inches, it looks terrible, right? It looks absolutely awful by any standard. And we can't do anything until it gets there. So we usually when it gets 6 inches or so, we get those, or 6 or 8 inches, we'll send that initial letter out saying, hey, just so you know, 12 inches is our ordinance. Make sure you mow, make sure you get it cleaned up. And generally that is enough anyway. But I guess if there's any interest in, I've had this on my list for a while, any interest in moving it down to maybe 8 inches or so, that might be something.
Starts to fall. You can't.
Yeah, it does. Yes. It does, but that's.
The situation that we have is there's no one living there.
Yep. And
You can't send a
those-
letter, you can't call
so-
no one that's lived there for over 3 years.
And so when we, I mean, I know yours, I will talk about that after, I'll take, but we found out that one, but, so for grass violations too, if it gets that 12 inches, no one responds to it, those are a little bit different than the regular code violations. Those what we'll do is we will send them a notice of intent to enter the property and mow. So we are allowed to mow the property and lien the property for our costs. So those we absolutely do. So we'll send an initial letter saying, hey, it looks like your property needs some work on it. If no response there, we'll, send them a new notice that says, okay, if you don't have your property mowed within, usually it's fairly quick, 7 days or so, 10 days, I think we give them. It's not more than 10 days, we're going to mow the property for you, and then we're going to lien the property. And you're going to pay our costs on it. And we maybe get 2 or 3 of those a year, a few more. I know other communities probably have a lot more than we do. Our residents really are very good about it, but that's the option for the tall grass. So when it gets to that level where nobody's mowing it, we'll send somebody out there, either our public works department, or we'll contract out to a service to mow it. And then we'll lien the property for those costs. And those, usually we haven't been foreclosing on those. Generally though, I think we get them paid back. Usually, almost all of them we've had in the past been paid back. When the property gets sold, it turns up on the title search. Title company calls us. Hey, are there any issues out there, any liens? We tell them, yep, you owe us $700 for whatever mowing service, whatever it is, and we'll get those checks cut to us. So it usually, maybe a few years, maybe 5, 10 years, but usually we get those get paid off eventually. So, but that is the really abbreviated code enforcement process. Is there interest? I put it on the committee of the whole for 8 inches? Or you want to keep it at 12 inches for?
Try it.
Lower, okay, I'll put it on for 8 inches, and if you want lower, you can make a motion to make it lower.
Joe, do the trustees are made aware if there is administrative hearing? Is that,
We can email dockets to you. We have it every, what day is it? Tomorrow, right? Oh, it is tomorrow.
but I mean, if there's something that is controversial or something that's coming, I mean, you said we don't have that many administrative hearings?
Yeah, we can email the dockets out. We get those, and the dockets we usually should have. We have a 30-day notice. We should get those out to you.
So do we have, how many things are on it? Do we know?
That I don't know, because Doug handles that, so he.
I don't think we have any code hearings tomorrow. I think it's usually going to be impound hearings.
We have stuff that.
They always do, yeah. So our admin hearing officer also reviews impounds. So anytime we impound a vehicle, we're required to give a sort of a due process notice or hearing, I guess, really. Allow them to come in and contest that impound fine that we put on our fee, actually. So essentially every single tow, it's a DUI or some sort of police tow, is a $500 impound.
But what about, not a lot of code administrative?
No,
right? I mean, I guess those are the ones that I think we.
The ones we've had and are, well, we can get the active ones. The active ones right now particularly is we've got, and these are all public, obviously, but the Newicki property, there's that, those sheds that they're selling on there. That we're trying to get that sort of cleared up. We're working through him, and that's what that was at hearing, but really we're working with him directly on that to try to get that sort of brought into compliance with our code. Steve Fleece's property on Main Street, a couple names on that one, but that Main Street property is a big one. Where the Lucky Lock used to be. So that one, maybe talking to people about that. If we would like to maybe bring that, we're gonna try one more thing on that one before we bring that to court, but that one's been in hearing for a while. I think there's one other one that's where we had the oil, I think I emailed everybody about that, but there was an oil gas tank or whatever at Rambo, what road was it on? Rowena, yeah. And then Public Works took care of that. We brought those people in. That one, however, that one's a mess. But that one, we actually got a response from the property owner, was apparently out of town for a long time, I guess, got the mail eventually. So that one probably won't, that'll be administrative hearings, but it won't necessarily probably go any farther than that.
Storage units 251.
The Noki ones, or
Can I say the name?
for whom?
Come out.
Oh, yeah, that's one where I really want to get cleaned up, and we've got response from them last fall. That one, we're sort of on that one probably will come to every hearing if we don't get anything resolved on that. It's the Gamal storage on 251, it's those blue storage buildings by Kid Spot. So those are the ones I think that were sort of the big ones, really, I'd say big, the big ones they're pending right now.
Well, this is good to know.
The rest-
I didn't know this. I don't think a lot of people do. I
Yeah.
think it's just helpful because we're trustees and we hear about them. We're
Yep.
like, what are you talking about? I
Yeah.
have no idea. So maybe we just,
We
you
can
know,
knock anything out,
yeah.
we can CC you, yeah, we can knock it out to you guys.
Okay.
Just one thing to keep in mind, the whole process, I think, is geared toward giving people many opportunities to comply.
Right.
And so, you know, we get punitive when every other means has ended, and sometimes in the 11th hour, once the dunning, you're going to be fined X, Y, Z, there's compliance.
Yeah.
And it's been my experience, those people who are unhappy will call directly
Yeah.
and ask. their
They might
questions,
call
but-
it, they might call it trustee.
Right,
I don't know.
and
So we give them-
it doesn't happen. So we have.
Yeah,
we're
I'll
fortunate
say
that we
we
have
have-
residents that are concerned about their
Yeah.
neighbors.
I'll say, yeah, I mean, honestly, I've worked in different municipalities and Roscoe's always been particularly good about resolving once they come in. So, yeah, any issues with that, question about that, code enforcement at Roscoe IL. If there's anything else, I don't know, otherwise I will. I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion by trustee Wright, second by trustee Broda, all in favor, all opposed,
Aye.
adjourned at 8:53 PM.
No?
Okay, well, I'm stuck in my brain.
We should have taken that.